Thanks for joining me today. My name is Sean Egglestone and I'm a registered dietitian, and I'm going to be going over some of my top dieting tips or top dieting mistakes that people make. I have a list of them off screen. There's a whole bunch of them I'm going to go over today, so just excuse me if I'm looking off screen. I'm just checking out my notes here. So the first one is we need to eat more of the good stuff. Oftentimes when I work with clients, they're always talking about what they're avoiding. I'm not eating oil. I'm not eating fried food. I'm not eating gluten. And I think that people get into a bad position because I'll see people that have open heart procedures and they actually don't follow that bad of a diet, but they don't eat any of the good stuff. We're so focused on what to avoid that we're completely missing the whole picture of like what to eat. You need to do both. You need to avoid the bad stuff and you need to eat the good stuff. So we need to shift our attention away from what to avoid and more onto what to consume. When you consume healthy foods such as fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds, they'll sort of push out of the way some of the bad stuff, right? Fried food, snack foods, junk foods, desserts. So focus on the good stuff and the bad stuff will typically fall away. Food's not something to be restricted or feared. It's to be embraced. Food is a tool, and it can be harmful or it can be helpful. Don't be scared of it. Educate yourself, become well-versed in nutrition, watch some of my other videos, and embrace it as medicine, and consume lots of the good stuff. Being consistent. Healthy nutrition is about a lifelong commitment. It's not about a quick diet fix. It's not a short-term means to an end. Pick dietary changes that are easy for you to maintain long-term, but that challenge you to be healthier every single day. Even the best diets will fail if they're not followed. So it's about long-term. This is long-term here. You need to change your environment. And that's one of the biggest issues, barriers that my patients face is deep down inside they want to change their diet, they want to be healthier, and they go home to a sick environment. Whether their kids are bringing in junk food, whether their husbands or their partners are bringing in takeout. So you really need to change your environment. You might need to get your family on board with the health changes you want to make. You're going to have to throw out all the junk you have at home and redo your pantry, your fridge, your kitchen to support your new habit. When you create an environment at home, when you walk home and you're surrounded by health, you will be healthy. You need to be prepared to sacrifice. Not everything about nutrition and diet change is going to be easy. If someone says it's easy, or you can have your cake, or you can do this, it's too good to be true. You're going to have to make sacrifices. Health won't happen without huge change. And if it was easy, everyone would have done it already. Your results are directly proportionate to your actions. Success happens by moving through failure and growing from the struggles and becoming a new person, not by avoiding them. You need to be prepared to give up your old habits so that new ones can take place. You can't hold on to the old you and expect to become the new you. Be prepared to change. So not just sacrifice, but change as an individual. When I made my huge dietary shift about 9-10 years ago, I re-identify. People identify with who they are physically. They might say, I'm a fat person. I'm a sick person. I'm a diabetic. You're identifying with your physical body type. You're identifying with your disease. And that can be a harmful way to think about who you are as an individual and your relationship with health. When you change your diet, you're going to be showing yourself that you love yourself, that you care for yourself. You need to embrace that. Don't push that away. Don't be scared. So think, write down, make a list. How do you define yourself, right? Who are you as an individual? Write that down. How do you define who you are? And you'll realize that you define yourself based on your diet and how you look in the mirror. So you need to be prepared to let go of who you are. It's a scary process, but if you can let go of who you are, you'll be able to become who you were meant to be. I hear time and time again people saying, I can't have that. I can't have what I want. I have to give up things that I love. I can't eat the way that I want. This is going to suck. I don't want to eat this way. What they're doing is they're blaming themselves. They're blaming their disease. And they're becoming resentful and bitter. And that's going to lead them to fail long term. A better perspective is saying, I can't eat tiramisu because it will give me diabetes. I can't eat this because it will make my heart disease worse. When you blame the unhealthy foods for being responsible for the disease that you have, or for it increasing your risk for a disease you don't want to have, then it's easier to avoid the food. So when you make the food the cause of why you're sick and not the disease, you have a disease and so you can't have this, you begin to change your diet, not to resent yourself. Focus on whole, unprocessed foods. Nearly all healthy diets have some of the same concepts, and that's avoiding processed food, added junk, snack foods. It's not real food. But you also have to be careful what advice you take, because some recommendations are based on the components of the food and not the food themselves. For example, some people will say, eat fish because it's high in omega-3s, and omega-3s are good for your heart. And so people eat fish. And it's not entirely wrong. Omega-3s are good for your heart. But omega-3s are just one type of fat, and not even the majority of the fat that's in fish. There's saturated fat in fish, there's cholesterol in fish, and we know that fish has the highest concentration of environmental pollutants of any other food that you can consume. So be careful when you take advice that is recommended based on a component of food and not on the benefit that the food has in general. So some will say, and there's another example, eat eggs because they contain lutein. The chickens get lutein from the greens that they consume. So there's something like 3 spinach leaves worth of lutein in an egg. So just eat the food where it came from. Don't buy into eating certain foods when people talk about the benefit of a certain component of the food. I want you to talk about the whole food. Nutrition is not a changing field, and that's one thing that I hear all the time is that nutrition is changing all the time. There's so much new information. It's like, yeah, no. A healthy diet basically hasn't changed in 18 million years. We need to follow a diet that's centered around whole plant-based foods. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts and seeds. That hasn't changed in nearly 18 million years. There is some new information and new stuff coming out, but the very premise of what makes a diet healthy basically hasn't changed. The next tip that I have for people is stop reading nutrition facts labels. Stop doing it. People are looking at the back of boxes like you even know what to look for. You don't even know what to look for on the back of the box. Stop looking at those numbers. You don't know what they mean. There's literally 3 different kinds of measuring tools to come up with those numbers on the back. Some of them are percentages. Some of them are absolute values. Some of them are have to do with percent by weight versus percent by calories versus percent by RDA. And so there's really no easy way to navigate those numbers. Most of the food that people need to buy actually shouldn't have nutrition facts labels on it at all. The only real number that I look for is sodium. I always make sure that the sodium is under 300 milligrams per serving. I don't care about the percentages on the right-hand side. I just want that absolute sodium value to be under 300. It can be important to look at the number of servings because who just eats one serving of things, so sometimes keeping that in mind can be helpful. What I care more about than the actual numbers, because people will say, oh, it's got 10 carbs, it's got 20 carbs. That looks like a lot. What I care more about is where the fat is coming from, where the carbs are coming from, and where the protein is coming from. I care about where these sources are coming from, not the total amount. It's about quality over quantity. And that's why I typically look at the sodium and then I move right below the nutrition facts label and I look at the ingredients. I want minimal ingredients. No added salt, no added sugar, no added fat. If you can avoid these, then you know that those numbers will be in check because nature has already figured out the right proteins, fats, and carbs for certain food items. So I care more about where I want those macronutrients to come from the original whole source where they came from, not added in as individual refined ingredients. Plus, the label won't tell you everything that's in the food. It doesn't tell you about the amount of heme iron that's in the food. It won't tell you about polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, advanced glycated end products, heterocyclic amines. There's so many components of food and so much stuff that can either make us sick or help us get healthy that's just not listed in the ingredients or the nutrition facts labels. They're there to help you, but it's not everything. I would say the most important tip is your why sucks. Why you want to get healthy sucks. It's a terrible reason. And that's why people fail, is because if your reason to be successful at being healthy isn't strong enough, your excuses will be. You can make any excuse and it'll be better than your reason to be healthy because your reason to be healthy sucks. You need to find a reason that's both intrinsic and extrinsic. You need to find something within yourself because I deserve to be healthy, because I deserve to be loved, because I want to fit in my wedding dress. Find something because I want to be able to go to the mailbox and not be out of breath. Find something within yourself, but more importantly, find something outside of yourself because I want to be around for my grandkids to graduate high school, because I want to be able to play with my children at the park and not have to sit down and watch them have fun, because I want to do this with someone else, because my wife is counting on me to take care of her. So you need to find both an extrinsic motivational factor and an intrinsic motivational factor, and that will help propel you forward to success. When someone is counting on you, you're more likely to succeed and push through failure than if it's just something intrinsic, because we can always make excuses for ourselves. It's harder to make excuses for other people. This last one's a toughie, and it's one that I've come up with. It's what I call be prepared to pay your dues. When we eat unhealthy, you're racking up what I call health debt. People can eat unhealthy junk food for a long time and not be unhealthy until one day, boom, their body's just like, I can't take this anymore. And they get sick. They get diagnosed with diabetes. Their kidneys stop working so well. And you need to be prepared to pay your dues. If you've been living this way for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you need to be prepared to make a lot more sacrifices. You have a lot of work to undo. You didn't care about your health for the last 20 years, and you think that it's going to take you 20 days to get healthy again. You need to be realistic. If you've been abusing your body and just eating food for its pleasure, to numb the pain, to forget about your stress and your problems, you've been abusing your body for a very long time. So you need to be prepared to put in a lot of work. You're going to have to make a lot of sacrifice. And those sacrifices are going to have to be in proportion to the amount of damage that you did. So the longer you've been eating unhealthy, the harder you're going to have to work to get over it. And I think that's a good thing, because when you push through that pain and when you push through those failures and you come out the other side a healthier person, not only are you going to be healthier, you're going to be stronger physically, mentally, and emotionally. And that strength is going to propel you to continue these good, healthy habits long term. I hope you found value in watching this. If you have any other questions or comments, you can post them down below. If you've seen this on YouTube or if you've seen this on my website, you can go over to the Contact Me section and shoot me an email. Again, check out SeanTheRD.com. That's my website, and it's got a ton of other nutrition videos, frequently asked questions, educational content. It'll provide you with everything you need to know to get healthy. Cheers.